Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is directed by Kathy Yan and stars a bunch of people, led by Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn once again after her role in Suicide Squad with the same character. And I'm not going to go too much into the plot of this movie because there's a lot going on, but the basic plot is that Harley and Joker have broken up. She's on her lonesome and she hasn't really been like that ever. It gives people full license to come after her for deeds that may have been done in the past, and it involves a lot of other characters being caught in the crossfires, and that's all I'm going to leave it at. I was kind of interested in this movie, I'm not gonna lie to you. For one, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn was probably my favorite part of Suicide Squad. I don't really love the movie, but if you've seen the movie, I think most people can agree that Margot Robbie did a great job, and she brought the character to life vibrantly and wonderfully. This film was also rated R, which is something that I was very excited about because I wished Suicide Squad was rated R, but it instead was not, and that was, in my opinion, still a missed opportunity. Like, I think they could have really gone for it if it was rated R, you know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, we now have this movie, and right out the gate, this is a marked improvement on Suicide Squad. This is a ton of fun and an absolute blast on screen, and I would honestly recommend watching this with a big audience because there's a lot to enjoy in this movie. This film is funny, it's relentless, it is very violent, and it earns that R rating for sure. It's not perfect, but it is definitely a ball. And I have now seen this movie twice. I saw it on January 29th at a press screening, I believe, and I've now seen it again at a more public screening tonight. And both times I absolutely enjoyed this movie, despite, like I said, a few issues that I have. We'll get into that stuff later on, but first let's talk about the stuff that I like. For one, this movie is very self-aware and relentless. It just doesn't hold back for the most part, and it makes fun of the fact that there are moments in it that are, it references itself quite a bit. It does get a little Deadpoolish in that regard, which is definitely a comparison I can see being made from 2 days from now when people start to watch this film. It's kind of like that at times. Harley breaks the fourth wall in this movie, for one. That's already a pretty big giveaway on that, but they handle it in a pretty good way, and I think that Margot Robbie honestly does a better job here than she did in Suicide Squad. She already earned my respect as this character, and I think they already brought her to life brilliantly, and I think now in this movie they've gone above that and done a way better job. In fact, I would argue she's better in this movie than the movie she's currently Oscar nominated for, which is Bombshell, which, as you all may have seen my review, I like that movie. But I think here she does an amazing job. She's extremely charismatic and she really gets the insanity of this character down to a T. But they also explore a more human side of her in this movie, which is something that I really liked. They go into a few more moments with her which are more affecting, and she's trying to better herself as a person, and in the process of trying to do that, she is realizing a couple of things about herself which are sometimes brought up even in the narration. There's a moment she has in particular with Cassandra Cain in the car, and it's kind of in the trailers as well. This moment between them is one of my favorites in the movie because she almost starts psychoanalyzing Cassandra Cain about something, and it's just giving you both sides of this character because she's also Harley, but she's also Harleen Quinzel, the doctor in psychology. So you guys kind of start to see both sides of her reflected every now and then in this movie, and I think they did a pretty good job of balancing those two things together. Aside from her, all the other characters playing the other birds I thought were great. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Huntress, and she does a good job, and I think she has one of the funnier moments in the film, if I may say so. Rosie Perez as Renee Montoya was also really, really great, and so was Ella J. Basco as Cassandra Cain. I'm going to talk more about Cassandra Cain in a spoiler review because there's some stuff I want to discuss about her because she actually has a big role to play in the movie. But I can't talk about it here because spoilers. But Black Canary, Jurnee Smollett-Bell, might be my favorite other character besides Harley. She is magnificent in this, and I think she did a wonderful job. I did not know much going in terms of what she was going to do. I mean, I knew the character Black Canary, but I think after having seen the film, I think I like this character even more, and I think they brought her to life really, really nicely. And yes, she definitely has a couple of big moments. If you're expecting a certain scene of sorts, I think you're going to be very pleased with this one. This movie definitely has a lot of fan service in that way for sure. There's a lot of little moments like that which are kind of put in there for every single change they have made in terms of source material, because there are some and some significant ones. They've made sure to keep certain things in there which as a fan, you seeing them will be like, oh yeah, I know what that's about. For example, there's a location in this movie that they go to at one point, and if you know your comic books, if you know Batman Mask of the Phantasm, the movie from the 90s, then you will probably be very, very happy with one thing that they do in this movie. There was just a big, like, ha, yay, they did it. As a fan, I was very pleased. But let's talk about the other scene stealer of this film, and that's Ewan McGregor as Black Mask, who comes on screen, and from the moment he's on screen, owns every moment he has on screen. He is very charismatic, very funny, and they add a level to Roman Sionis here that I really appreciated, actually, and I think Ewan McGregor sold it perfectly. As did Chris Messina as Victor Zsasz, who is a serial killer. If you've read Batman comics or played the games, the Arkham games, then you know exactly what he is. Or if you've even seen the Gotham TV show, except he's a lot different in that though. But I think if you have that basic knowledge of Zaz, certain mannerisms, things he does, and visual aesthetics of his, I would say, they make a lot more sense. So yeah, maybe look that up a little bit either before or after seeing the movie. The score and soundtrack are, I think, better than Suicide Squad, and I should mention less abrasive. I think Suicide Squad's biggest mistake was there was score and music, and there was just a soundtrack, the songs. They were constantly back and forth every 15 seconds. This one definitely paces itself out a lot more, and it does a better job of the musical numbers and editing those musical numbers. And I think that it works a lot better. Just repeating myself there. This review is also now getting self-aware because I'm calling myself out for, not doing a, good enough job of keeping to the point. It's also written in a pretty good way. The story is absolutely bonkers. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I mean, it is insane. So it requires a certain level of escapism for sure. But yeah, you gotta have to give yourself into the madness a couple of times in this movie. I'm gonna reference a scene for you right now. This isn't the trailers, by the way. This is not a spoiler. I'm just gonna narrate the scene from the trailer, so it is mostly the same in the movie. So Harley is cornered by a bunch of gunmen. They're all firing at her, and she's behind this structure. It turns out to be a stash of cocaine. It starts raining down on her. She inhales it, and then she goes to basically, super powered levels of sorts, and she starts laying waste to these gunmen using a baseball bat. That's a scene in this movie. If you're willing to give yourself to something like that, you're gonna have a ball with this one. I mean, I don't see you not enjoying this movie if you can take something like that. I mean, you can take an octopus playing drums in Aquaman, right? You can probably take this one. It's a very colorful, very vibrant movie. It's nicely shot. There's a few really great visuals in this one. There's one visual that was a little CGI, which I was not a big fan of. But they do a pretty good job of, making this film look very colorful. And at one point in time, and I noticed this more on the second viewing, at one point in time, there's a scene going on, and there are multiple characters, and the backgrounds suddenly become color-coded in terms of the lights in the place to the character. That was a neat little touch. I did kind of like that. My biggest issue with this film is sometimes its balance. There are two parts to the title of this movie, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. This focuses sometimes way more on the Fantabulous Emancipation part than it does the Birds of Prey part. That does tend to sometimes get a bit sidelined. In fact, the movie builds to that part a little bit, and so it is a while before you get to that get to that stuff. So if you're, someone who wanted more Birds of Prey, there's a little less of that, but this movie is more about, Harley's redemption. So I feel like this is going to be subjective, but I feel like they could have balanced that out a little bit more. Also, certain characters I think don't get enough screen time as compared to some other characters. For instance, one major character in this movie who I really liked is on screen, but not as much as I would say Harley is, or even Cassandra Cain is, and they're the two main characters of the movie actually, and they definitely get the most screen time of the entire cast. But I wish that there was a little more balance, and I think more screen time would have been nice for a few of those characters. Like I said, I can see some people not really liking this movie because of some of those similarities it has to Deadpool and sometimes even John Wick, because the fight choreographer of that movie worked on this movie. But that's really it. Those are really my biggest issues with it. There's a couple of other tiny little things, but I'll talk more about that in the spoiler review because I can't talk about them here. At the end of the day, Birds of Prey is definitely a film that has everybody invested in it. And by that I mean people wanted to make this movie. Margot Robbie fought to make this movie. She pitched it. It took a while to convince executives, but they finally went with it. And then Kathy Yan and Christina Hodson came on. They made this thing together. Margot Robbie produced the film too, with her company Lucky Chap. And this definitely feels like a product that they wanted to make. And they did a pretty good job with it. It doesn't feel manufactured or, corporate produced like a lot of Suicide Squad did, unfortunately. This one definitely feels like its own movie. And right there, I have to give it a ton of praise just for being able to execute that. It's not always perfect. It definitely has its issues, but I had a great time with it nonetheless. I'm going to give Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn an 8 out of 10. They also gave us a goodie bag. There's a poster in here. It's the mural thingy. It's quite nice. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.